Hello there, and welcome to the channel. Today, I thought we'd take a look at the Nikon white balance modes. We'll have a quick whiz through what is white balance, and then we'll run through the different modes that you'll get on most Nikon cameras. So yeah, so let's start off with what is white balance. Well, on the user manual for my Nikon, which is D7500, Nikon described white balance as white balance ensures that the colors are unaffected by the color of the light source. So that's a pretty good description. Basically, what we're saying there is, so what we see with the human eye when we move into different lighting conditions. So if we move, if you're in a house that's got ambient light on, um, and then you step into the garden, into the bright sunlight, we don't see difference of colors. Everything just looks normal and natural to us. However, cameras can't record that, don't see that in the same way. They record color by temperature. And so every different environment that you're in, whether that be indoors, out in bright sunlight, in the shade, in a cloudy environment, the color for those environments, each has a different temperature, and that's what the camera records to try to match what we see with the human eye. That's basically what white balance is doing. It's what we see with the eye is what we hope to see on the picture, on the photograph that we take, and that's basically what white balance is. Now, Nikon, and again in my user manual, Nikon recommend that if you are using your camera in manual mode, aperture priority, shutter priority, or program mode, they strongly recommend that you use auto white balance. For the other modes, the remaining modes that might be on your camera, white balance would be selected automatically by the camera. However, they do go on to say that whilst they suggest auto white balance, other values can be selected if necessary. So they're very pro recommending their auto white balance, but the other modes are there available to us if we want to use them. And to do that, they've given us, I think I've counted 10 white balance modes on my camera so far, and there may even be a couple more out there I haven't come across yet. So anyway, without further ado, let's take a look at the different modes on a Nikon camera. Okay, so I've now got my camera, my D7500 called Bob. I've now got this hooked up to my laptop so I can share my camera screens with you. First of all, I'm just going to half press the shutter release just so I can show you what my camera settings are at the moment. If I do that, okay, and we can quickly see that we're in manual mode and that my white balance is set to auto 1. Now, the fact that there's a 1 next to auto would suggest to me that there is more than one auto balance mode. However, if I go into my white balance modes, and to do that on my camera, D7500, I would press, I have a button there which has got a question mark and the key on it, and that's also my white balance mode. It might be different on your camera, or it might be the same, but the button may be in a different location. However, if you press and hold your white balance button, which I will do now, you'll now see the different modes that we can select. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, we've got auto 1, which makes me think there's more than one auto white balance auto mode. But if I press to go on to the next mode, it doesn't take me to auto 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. It goes through, we start going through the different white balance modes. we're going to look at in a sec. So somewhere in my camera settings, there's going to be another menu, possibly offering up other auto white balance modes. So let's just take a quick moment to have a look at that. So if I now press the menu button on the back of my camera and go into the photo shooting menu, you can see there that we've got settings for white balance, which is set to auto 1. Now, if I right click on the multi-selector on the back of my camera, you can see there that I've got auto 1 selected, but I can select right again. If I do that, you see that there is an auto 2. So actually, Nikon is not just offering me auto white balance, it's offering me 2 auto white balances, auto 1 and auto 2. Now, auto 2 is similar to auto 1, but it is slightly warming up the colors a bit. It's a little bit odd, that to my mind, because if we wanted to adjust the settings of any of the modes, including auto 1, we can adjust those in camera on them. So if I wanted to warm up, if I wanted a warm auto white balance, I could just adjust the settings on auto 1 and warm that up a little bit. I hope that makes sense what I'm saying, and I'll show you that as we're going through. But you do have, or you may have, additional auto white balance settings on your camera. If you see auto 1, then you've certainly got an auto 2 as well, but you'd have to go into the setup menu there to locate that. So anyway, let's go back to the white balance settings. So I'm going to press the white balance button again, get back to where we were, and we're in auto white balance. You can see there that little colored scale there. We can, by turning the front command dial on your camera, we can turn down or up the temperature on the auto white balance. And in fact, we can do this for all of the white balance modes. So what I was trying to, and I may not have done it very well, but what I was trying to explain earlier is, why do we need a separate white balance 2 to warm up the white balance, when I can just, if I want to, I could just warm up white balance 1. I don't quite get that, but hey, they've given us it's there, so it is what it is. But you can, if you select any of the white balance modes and you find it a little bit cooler, or a little bit, the color's a little bit to the blue side, or it's a little bit orangey, whatever, you can adjust the white balance modes in camera if you want to, by using on my camera, I'm using the front dial, and put that back to 0. Do notice, sorry, I should have mentioned, by the way, if you adjust these settings, and if I just turn it quickly there, you notice now where it shows auto 1, you notice now there's an asterisk showing on screen, and that's just to remind you that you've actually altered those settings. So it's a bit of a warning for you. So, and that won't go away until you change that back to 0. So let's just bring that back, and if I bring that back to 0 now, and you see that the asterisk has gone away. So just be aware of that. So that's auto 1, and we've seen that there is an auto 2, which is a slightly warmer version of auto 1, if you can find a use for that. Okay, so moving on to the next white balance choice that we have, the light bulb. Incandescent, I think, is it? Incandescent is the word that describes it. I hate that word, so I've struggled to pronounce that. But yeah, so indoor lighting, before we all started lighting our homes with LED lights and Philips Hue, etc., light bulbs was the thing. And a room lit with light bulbs would have a set temperature, and this is what we would set the camera to try and correct for that. However, Nikon strongly recommends that use auto white balance unless you really feel the need to not use it. So yeah, so the light bulb is incandescent light. Use it if you wish, or use auto white balance. And again, with the same as for the auto, you can increase and decrease the temperature if you so desire. If it's just slightly off, if you do use this mode and you find it slightly off and you want to adjust it, you can do. And if you do, you'll see the asterisk on the icon remind you that you've made some changes to that white balance mode. So if I just bring that back to 0, the asterisk is gone, and we'll move on to the next mode. So next one looks a bit like a centipede to me, but this is fluorescent lighting. Again, fluorescent lighting in a workplace, in buildings that have fluorescent lights, has a slightly different temperature. So you can either select this or go for your auto white balance. And as said earlier, you can adjust the temperature on that if you wish. So yeah, fluorescent lighting. Okay, so next one, direct sunlight. So if you're outdoors in direct sunlight, you can select this. So Nikon prefer you to select auto white balance. However, it's your choice. Just bear in mind that particularly with the outdoor white balance modes, that lighting changes, and what is direct sunlight 1 minute might be cloudy or shady or whatever the next. So if you do manually select this mode, do keep an eye out on what you're doing and change your mode if necessary. So yep, so this is available for direct sunlight. Okay, next one, flash. So if your primary light source is going to be flash, for example, indoor studio work, then this will be one of the options that you have. I would suggest, if you are doing studio work, that you don't go for the auto white balance. You would either go for flash or set the temperature manually, which we'll look at in a second, or preset, which we'll look at on another day. So but the flash setting will set your white balance to a specific temperature, and for most flash guns, strobes, it will do a good job. So that's the option to use. Don't be fooled by the fact if you are outdoors and you're using a flash gun just to give a little bit of a pop to put catch lights in your subjects, in your model's eyes or whatever, then that's not really shooting with flash full on sort of thing. So you probably want another white balance mode. Just because you're operating the flash doesn't mean that you need to select flash there. But if flash is your primary source or your only source of light, particularly again indoor studio work, then maybe flash is the option for you. I hope that kind of made sense. Okay, moving on. So moving on from flash, cloudy, another outdoor environment. So we've got direct sunlight. That can suddenly become cloudy. If it becomes cloudy, you might want to move your white balance setting to cloudy if you're not in auto white balance. Next one, I had to look this up. I stared at that and I just didn't know what that was. That was a house with a lean-to on the side to me, and I thought, what does it mean? And I had to go back to the book to. I'm rather ashamed to say I had to look it up to see what it means. But it means shade. So it's a house, and the side of the house is in shade. It's not a lean-to. Called me, but I did try to think what other kind of icon could they have used. It would have been a bit easy for simpletons like me to understand, but I couldn't come up with anything. So it's as good as anything. So it's shade on the side of the house. So if you're in a shady area, you might want to set this um, mode, but again, bear in mind as the sun moves around, the shade may disappear. So you need to be constantly aware of that if you've selected this manually, or go auto white balance. Next one. So Kelvin. So this is one of the ones that I use because I do a lot of indoor um, studio flash work, and I can set the temperature that I want for my pictures. Now, the reason I would do that is that I know that my flashlights or even my studio LED lights have a certain temperature value, and that's measured in Kelvin. So I know, for instance, that my lights are set to 6500. So I don't need to rely on anything else. I don't off the top of my head know what if I selected the flash icon, what temperature that exactly is. I could look it up, but I don't off the top of my head, I don't know. But with this option, I can set the exact temperature into the camera, and as long as there's not other ambient light interfering with your flashlight, then you're going to get a very accurate white balance. So I would use this quite a lot. Now, to set your temperature, if I've just pressed the multi-selector to the left, and then that lets me go through the numbers, and I can turn them up or down to select what I want. You notice that I can't get to the very last zero there. If I want to make further adjustments, I can use the front dial, and it is a real, it's a bit of a pig because I'll show you what it does, but it gives me a bit of a runaround. So I'm going to press the front command dial now, and you see there, and if I roll it up and down, it gives me some approximate settings which I can then manually go and change. But I can't now get back, having made that change once. I can't get back to my 6500, which is what I wanted. It's a bit of a pain. So I now need to go back to if I just do this menu. So I'm now just using this selector at the rear of the camera again, and I'm now back how I want that. So the front dial is there. I think it's just to put you in the ballpark area of what you want to set, and then you use the rear dial to get the more accurate setting. To be honest, I think if you just use the rear dial and leave the front dial alone, if you have that option, then I think it's as good as any. So Kelvin, good for flash studio photography. Also, I'm no expert, I've never used it, but things like product photography where matching colors exactly and getting the lighting and things are really important, that you might want to set the Kelvin to the lighting equipment that you're wanting to get, yeah, as accurate an image as you possibly can. But yeah, but I use Kelvin for studio work. So there we go. So let's move on to the next one. So presets. So that's the last of the options. I'm not going to go through this one today because I want to do this a bit separately, in a different video, because it's a little bit more complicated. What preset does, it does two things. One, it allows you to take a photograph that you feel that you are happy with the white balance in the lighting environment that you are in. That's really important. You can't just take a picture and think, oh yeah, that's got great white balance, I'll use that for my camera. It must be the white balance is correct in the environment that you are in at that time. So the picture that you need to be taken, it needs to be at the time that you are in that environment. So yes, so you can take a picture, and if you're happy with that white balance, you can use preset to set the white balance to that white balance. Alternatively, you can take a picture using a grey card, which if I point at that thing there in the background, which is what we're using in the video I do on the preset. You can use one of those things, and that should give you a very accurate white balance reading, which you then save into your camera. So it's a bit like taking a picture, but you don't actually get a resulting image. But we'll go through that on in a different video. And yeah, so I think that's about white balance. So as I've said more than once today, Nikon strongly recommend and promote their auto white balance. I've certainly done studio work and forgotten to change my white balance from auto white balance into flash, and had no bad results at all. It is very good. If you're new to photography, or if you just want to use point and shoot, then always go auto white balance. You can't go wrong. But if you want to play around with the other modes, particularly if you're doing flash work, studio work, it's worth understanding or using the flash modes, the Kelvin modes, and the preset modes. Yeah, and that's about it, I think. I hope you have found bits of this useful. If you have, please like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you at the next video. Thank you very much for your time. It's very appreciated. Thank you, and goodbye.